I think the only appropriate way to start this video is to immediately dive into specs and features and just compare it to some other cameras. I can only assume that's why you're here and you're wondering if this camera is a good fit for you. And I think it's going to be one of those if you know, you just know type deals. You know, before we get started, you must know that all of the hardware included in this video was provided for free by OBSBOT. Now, while I did permit them to suggest some talking points and preview a draft of the video before I posted just for accuracy, I maintain Final Cut, which I think is a fair trade for $1,000 in hardware. This plus another camera I'm doing for another video. With that said, today's coverage is going to include an OBSBOT Tail Air camera, a USB-C to Ethernet adapter, and a remote control. The Logitech C920 records in 1080p 30 FPS over USB 2.0. It can only connect directly to the computer that you're using. You can control some basic camera settings with an app, but first you have to figure out which app to use. Is it Logitune, Logitech G Hub, Logitech Camera, Logitech Capture, Logitech Gaming Software? Nobody knows. That camera can be purchased today for $60. Elgato Facecam Pro 4K resolution up to 60 frames per second over USB 3, a Sony image sensor and an aperture of 1.8. A single piece of software packed with basic and advanced controls of the camera. Cool effects like software pan, tilt, zoom, variable focus, fixed focus, visual effects, and more. Supports H.264 and MJPEG at 4K or NV12 at 1080p. And that camera is $299. Today's camera, the OBSBOT Tail Air 4K 30, ISO range of 100 to 6400, shutter speed up to 1/8000, auto and manual focus, auto and manual white balance ranging from 2000 Kelvin to 10,000, a 6-axis gyroscope for hardware pan, tilt, zoom, and a dual-axis gimbal, a built-in 3.5mm TRS for external microphones, 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi, 5 GHz Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, support for RTMP, RTSP, NDI, built-in image stabilization, able to output video over USB, wired networking, wireless networking, HDMI out, or just directly to a streaming service like Twitch, built-in battery, remote control support, AI features like gesture and voice control, almost latency-free monitoring with the mobile app over wireless or wired networking. Support for ND filters can be controlled from Windows, Mac OS, iPad OS, and iOS, which supports simultaneous control of 3 Tail Air cameras at the same time. So that's just to give you an idea of the scope of features in this camera. In the box for the Tail Air, you have a nice travel case, the Tail Air camera itself, one USB-C penis to dual USB-C vagina, one USB-C cable, and a USB-C to USB-A adapter. The remote came with just a remote and the USB-C to USB-A cable. I plugged my camera into the M1 Mac Mini via the included USB cable, downloaded the software. It was detected immediately detected it needed a firmware update, and after that, I was good to go. Before I dive into the interview, I want to get something out of the way. This is a $500 camera, $500. This should not be your first camera for content creation. If you need a static camera for recording or streaming, there are so many amazing options for half the price. If you're watching this and you're thinking, well, if I get that, it would allow me to do this, so maybe I'll start doing that. This isn't the camera for you. Alternatively, if you're watching this and point by point, boxes start getting checked in your mind, start solving problems. The wheels in your head start turning, just giving you ideas on how you could use this to elevate what you're already doing. Now we're talking. So what I want to do is dive into the features or specs of the camera that matter to me. This isn't going to be a full-blown overview of every feature or spec possible. If you know the history of what we commonly refer to as a webcam, a camera that plugs into your computer via USB, from the day Jesus Christ himself rose from the ashes till about 2022, webcams were awful. That era of webcams was like everybody who had cooked a steak up until the point where we realized non-stick pans are stupid. We can reverse sear, sous vide with cast iron and butter baste that behemoth. The OBSBOT Tail Air is the reverse sear sous vide. And if you haven't had a reverse seared, butter basted sous vide steak yet, well, then you haven't had steak yet. So you have thousands of years up until 2017 when the world tricked us into thinking that 4K USB cameras were a huge step up, and they're here now. Spoiler alert, they weren't. All these camera manufacturers making 4K webcams were actually dog shit, and we were stuck with those for like another 5 years. And it wasn't until 2022 where actual polished, feature-rich, good-looking 4K webcams hit the market. And then just a year or so later, We're sous vide, baby. To me, having pan tilt zoom built into the camera isn't cool because of the AI tracking. So while this camera is advertised with the tracking being like a groundbreaking feature, to me, that is a supplementary feature for very specific use cases. Nobody is going to choose to stream or record with tracking on for long periods of time. It's unnatural looking and it's weird. But the combined superpowers of pan tilt zoom, low latency monitoring, dual remote control, wireless connectivity, you can stick this to a wall wherever. It doesn't even matter. The fact that all of the aspects of this camera can be controlled wirelessly, you can do whatever you want. Temperature, tint, control, shutter speed, zoom, tracking, recording settings, all of it. They're all controllable from either a mobile app or the desktop app without any caveats. Now, I know some of you are going to find this as valuable as I do because you've been where I've been, at home, wet, naked, unboxing your brand new Sony a6400, and you set it up on a tripod and you say, great, it's 2021, remote control of mirrorless cameras has to be fantastic now, right? Only to realize that you would have a better chance DIYing some patch cables, a potato, and live electricity than to try and get Sony's mobile app or desktop app to work properly. It's a joke, and frankly, it's embarrassing. So I appreciate that these features are included and polished. Also, making minor adjustments to framing when you have a pan tilt zoom camera is worth spending the extra money for, in my opinion. How many times have you had a camera on a ball head and then you sit down and you look at yourself and you look at the monitor and then you get up and then you adjust it and then you sit back down and you look at yourself. It doesn't look good and then you get up, you adjust and you sit back down and you look at. With a camera that has PTZ, just make sure you're level on the horizon and then adjust everything else within the app. With the portability, having the flexibility works for me because sometimes I'm working throughout the entire room or I'm in a garage and it'd just be super cool to set the camera up in the corner and capture everything and know that I have a primary camera that's up close and personal and I can cut between those two in post. It's from I want to make sure I capture everything type perspective. Knowing that I have a camera capturing the room at all times means I'm not afraid of getting out of frame on camera one. So that's pretty huge to me. Here's another cool thing I thought of while testing the camera. Do you have one of those small like motorized gimbals or motorized slider gimbals? Because now you can pair the PTZ tracking and motorized slider all together. And now it's super portable. If you have one of those motorized sliders that is meant for time lapses and that just goes back and forth over and over, you could pair that with, streaming the image over the network to a PC with OBS. And, I set my OBS to record for 5 hours, taking a single frame every 60 seconds. And I could do really cool time lapses with something like that. At the beginning of this video, we touched on all the ways that you can get the image from this camera to wherever you want to go. Plug it in directly to a computer using a USB cable, plug it into a network switch, and then juice it using a power over Ethernet adapter. Get that feed over the network. You can go to your phone natively or to a computer via RTSP or NDI, or just power it and then send everything over the network wirelessly. If you want to just completely skip the computer and then either record directly to SD card, you can. Stream direct to a streaming service with RTMP, you can. HDMI out directly into a capture card. Yes, you can just walk out the door with this camera and your phone and you don't have to think about bringing anything else with you. That's pretty sweet. Using your phone for extremely low latency monitoring on the go is huge. And knowing that the app works and is stable is also a huge plus. Jesus Christ, my nose. The accessories that I have are not included with the camera, but they are worth touching on. The shockingly expensive $100 Ethernet to USB-C cable, while absurd, was handy. If I didn't get this for free, there's no way I would have spent $100 on it, like it was an Apple Thunderbolt cable. I'd be finding a 50-foot Cat 5e or 6 cable and then trying to find a PoE adapter that could work. If OBSBOT has made this a proprietary cable, I'm not aware, consider me furious in the future. And then you got the remote. This is interesting because if you see here, it looks incomplete, like it's a part of a kit, but this is all that comes in the box. It looks like a Joy-Con yearning for a Nintendo Switch, and it's got these little metal pads that look like it should connect to something. I was licking the bottom of the tail air, and I noticed that it had more of those same pads. So I got to goofing on the interwebs. I was looking around the website, and I found something called a 360-degree rotation Playmore combo. It's a rotating charging dock for the tail air that spins. And then there's also a charging dock that has the same connectors as the remote. And so I'm thinking that the remote then, nope, nothing. It doesn't. It's just long and skinny. That's about the only similarities that the remote has to that dock. God, I thought I was so close. Before I unhooked the camera to set this up behind my Elgato prompter, I was using it over my dual PC setup behind me. This is a setup that I use for gaming, recording, and music stuff. Since I have my main network rack in my office as well, it was incredibly easy and simple to get the tail air on the network. And then no matter if I'm on my Mac Mini, my MacBook Air, the gaming PC, or the recording PC, I can use the OBSBOT software on any of those or my phone to immediately pipe that feed into OBS or Teams or Discord. That flexibility is super important to me, and it's why I find this camera so valuable. Whether I'm just like jamming or experimenting playing guitar, I have the tail air as a camera in like a 3-camera setup. So the tail air uses tracking to follow me around the room, and then the GoPro Hero 4 captures the entire room from a fixed angle. Both HDMI out that go into an Elgato Camlink Pro, and then I can also use the Logitech C920 to capture my pedal settings. The 1/4 thread on the bottom of the camera means that I can mount it anywhere that an Arca Swiss mount or tension arm can be mounted. So that is absolutely bola. Okay, so what are some negatives? Negative number 1, like I mentioned before, I'm using the tail air right now behind my Elgato prompter, and it did not focus right. It kept blurring out even though I had automatic focus on. I don't know if it's just the distance from the glass to the lens that it keeps throwing it off, but I had my first take of this video ruined because it wasn't focusing. But it's not meant to be used with a teleprompter, so my fault. For the rest of these, I honestly had to sit and think about where the negatives were, like really channel my inner nitpicking to come up with these. So number 1, why can't I drag the software edge down? Why are you making me scroll when I have the real estate? Pisses me off. Number 2, if the camera is on the network and connected, it can't update without an SD card plugged in. Since I have solid wireless and wireless networking, I'm not going to record to an SD card that often. That was a mild annoyance. I streamed on Twitch for 9 years, and I have some pretty extensive experience with NDI. To be more specific, the free NDI software that integrates with Mac, Windows, OBS. Finding out that NDI license for the camera was $100 was kind of a bummer. That seems a little ridiculous to me, but maybe that is just the going price for licensing for NDI hardware. I've just been spoiled with the free stuff. I will accept that. Lastly, and this is ridiculous, I know, the SD card slot, the spring-loaded one on the back of the camera, has receded back farther than my hairline. I could not insert the SD card with my thumbnails. I had to use a knife. That was weird. Overall, this camera absolutely gets my stamp of approval. While at this time, I don't see a scenario where I would buy more of these because I don't really have a setup that calls for it. I could imagine using these in my workshop for monitoring or recording 3D prints for YouTube, having it be like a 3-shot camera for recording unboxings, or like a talking head that I could move the camera up and then down, sitting at a desk, taking this out to the garage to work in the workshop out there. I could see myself doing something like that, but super cool camera that I've been honored to test and use. So shout out to OBSBOT for letting me use it. That's all for today. Goodbye.